Hello and welcome to ThePrint. I'm TCS Sharad Raghavan, Deputy Editor, and today I'm in conversation with two really interesting personalities. They can talk to us about the full philanthropy landscape in India, which right now, if you ask me, is absolutely crucial. So first we have Mr. Atul Satija. He is the founder and CEO of the Nudge Institute. Now, what is the Nudge Institute? It's a philanthropic organization that brings together more than 100 plus philanthropists, really eminent personalities. More than 40 corporates are their members and are helping them. And the aim is poverty reduction. And of course, we have with us Mr. Deep Kalra. He is the founder and group CEO of MakeMyTrip. He, of course, needs no introduction. But the thing is that he is also one of these founding philanthropists who are part of the Nudge Institute. So thank you both for joining us and thank you for sparing your time. So now, Mr. Satija, I'll start with you. You've been in this, I would call it the business of philanthropy for a long time now. How has it progressed over time? How has it changed? Where do we stand now? And how is it different from what it was, say, even 10 or 20 years ago?
See, I think India has covered a huge amount of distance in the last, I would say, 5 to 7 years, not even 10 years. Two things are happening. One, the CSR law came into effect 10 years back, but it took 3 years for the organizations to settle into that. It allowed for 3 years of spending. So only in the last 5 to 6 years, we have seen CSR start to matter. And the numbers have accumulated now. So now we are sitting at an annual funding of $4 billion coming into the non-profit ecosystem to create impact. And it is changing the character and fabric of how programs are being done by non-profits. But it has its constraints, which means that the capacity building money that non-profit need, that cannot come from CSR given the constraints on compliances, spending, etc., etc. So the philanthropists have realized that, look, they don't need to fund programs. They should come in and fund institution building so that non-profits can leverage the other sources of money and scale. Which brings me to the second big wave we are seeing, which is that philanthropists have realized their role as risk takers, institution builders, capacity builders, and they're coming and creating institutions, supporting non-profits and allowing them to actually scale with the other sources of capital. And because we are seeing more and more of startup founders seeing early liquidity and some older role models like Deep, always been Deep philanthropists, it's actually having a very nice effect of early role models like Deep and the new age wealthy people following their lead to say, okay, we can also do the same thing. And I think both of these coupled together are a very powerful compounding forces that are changing the fabric of good quality institutions creating impact.
Okay, and Mr. Kalra, I wanted to actually take off from this. In the past, we've seen individual philanthropists using their resources to address particular challenges, but we're seeing a growing momentum now where, as he mentioned, a lot of entrepreneurs now are entering this area. They're seeing that there are things to be done and that they can do it. So what is driving this new interest, as it were?
Yeah, I think Atul summed it up really well. I think it's the coming together of a couple of things. It's at that point of time too when India is obviously truly booming. A lot of new businesses have done well very quickly. I think what's different with the new breed, if I can say, or the first time entrepreneurs, particularly from the tech sector, or I would just say over the last 10, 20 years, I think the thinking is, I had a plan. I didn't have much money. I was able to raise money. I was able to raise resources. I was able to build a team and actually give life to this plan, build something which became of value, which people, found value, both stakeholders on the demand side and the supply side, and eventually build a very valuable company. And therefore, I can either do similar stuff because my country needs it. So I think there's a lot of patriotic spirit with new age entrepreneurs, because I don't think any of us forget for a minute that the education system, particularly what we got in India, played a huge role in making us what we were. So I think there's a lot of give back, which is a natural thing. People want to give back, not just to their alma mater, but to their country. And they are armed with the belief that it can be done either by themselves directly. So I know people who were in the for-profit sector made their money, etc., and are now completely in the not-for-profit sector. And, I think Atul, great example of that, of what he did when I met him first time. It was just, actually, I think you were almost still doing some time with InMobi, or you were in the process of getting out.
I had formally ramped down, but I was informal advisor.
Correct. And that was amazing. And I know other people like Ashish Dhawan who have done that, who have made the full change and the full flip. Or the others who are saying, listen, we are still happy. We are happy to find other founders, again, like him, and many others, where we see the promise of institution building. So we will address this with the same kind of framework with which we addressed our problem in the for-profit world. And that's what we need. Today, there's no dearth of people with passion who want to solve social problems. I think the real dearth is people who can also scale up. So the Venn diagram of passion with scale is what you need. You need that intersection. And if I see that personally, I can't talk for everyone else, I get very excited. And then you say, hey, we'd love to back someone like this, because that's what it'll take. It'll take 1,000, maybe 10,000 such organizations of different scale to solve India's problem, along with what the government's doing. I mean, nothing is going to be done without. The biggest partner for any good NGO in the country is the government. It has to be, because you won't get impact without that. So yeah, that's my, take on why things are different this time and why there's a lot of light at the end of the tunnel.
Fantastic. And Mr. Satija, now there is this growing, this new surge is leading to larger scale impacts than earlier. But how do you go about deciding when you look at poverty alleviation? It's one huge term and it encompasses so much. So how do you go about targeting, okay, now we're going to address this aspect or that aspect? Or is there a change in the way that you're looking at the issue entirely?
Yeah. So there are two pieces to it. I think one large wave is there is no doubt that India's economic growth is going to continue to be strong.
Right.
We have a problem that we are a rich country with large number of poor people, right? And we are becoming a richer and richer country, hopefully with less and less poor. So problem is anyway coming down. There are pieces of the problem that will not get solved. For example, inclusivity is not given in all economic growth journeys. So you don't want to become a rich country where the more and more riches are going to the people who are already having more than enough. It's not as long as we are able to lift all people in society, we are in a good place. So how do you look at the people who will get excluded? What we are trying to say is that one is that how do we get the people who are benefiting from the economic growth contribute back, not just with capital, but also with their ideas, energy, passion, experience of having large scale businesses, etc. But the second is how do you also make sure that the governments are participating in inclusive growth? And so far, governments are really, really good in passing on the benefits of riches through taxes back to the poor. And that's an easy way to support poor people. But we all know that poverty is not just the lack of money. If I don't have productive capacity to make money from money, you can give me money, I can finish that money. And we keep hearing stories of people who got lottery and got 5 crores on KBC, and now they are again sort of back to where they were, right? So it's not just transferring capital, public money to poor. We are trying to see that the designs that these new age social entrepreneurs are bringing are actually working closely with the government as talent, as designed, as ideas, and helping government systems actually really solve problems meaningfully. And that is where the talent equation is important. You want young people working inside the government, helping the government and make large-scale government systems work.
So as opposed to, instead of subsidies, you mean value creation, as it were.
And social entrepreneurship, I think, as a vehicle is what we are betting all of this on.
Right. And Mr. Kalra, now with this rise of entrepreneurs who are increasingly with a philanthropic bent of mind, is there a more out-of-the-box kind of thinking when it comes to philanthropy? Is there more risk-taking appetite, risk capital that's going into this area?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a function of, what you have and how much of that you want to, say, put aside for philanthropy. So I think most people think that way. And as you get more and more, you can put more. But the framework to select which causes you're going to back, I think that's the interesting one. So again, no dearth of causes in India, no dearth of issues. So what is dear to your heart? What is close to your heart? Where do you think will be the multiplier effect? And irrespective of which cause you pick, I think it comes back to the quality of the team there. So founders very important, co-founders very important, even the core team, because the core team plays a huge role. And that whole sustainability, which is exactly what you look at even in a for-profit venture. So if you're angel investing, at least in my case, all I look for is a strong team who have probably worked together or have chemistry, similar kind of value set, and very, very determined to solve the problem, meaning they have the resilience. Resilience becomes a big one because I think a lot of mortality happens in the first few years. So I tell all entrepreneurs, for-profit sector, not for profit, they're coming from a very different source. So they have to figure it out themselves. Like, how committed are you? How long are you willing to keep running on fumes before you see something happening? Because it'll be like that. I've seen enough people, lose steam because they didn't get what they wanted in the sector. And it's not easy. I think it's becoming a little easier each year, each passing year. But again, the money is going towards people who have demonstrated we can scale. So no one from the new age sector, entrepreneurial sector is going to back in a very big way someone who has passion alone. You'll have them, you'll probably help them out just like you'll help out friends and batchmates and everyone else, knowing fully well this is almost like something you have to do, right? Because you can't say no. But the ones you really want to back with, for lack of a better word, with bigger checks are people who can really make an impact. So I think it comes down to impact.
Right. Okay. And this is a question now for both of you. A lot of the issues in India, and so far what we've seen is, again, a lot of philanthropists doing great work, but on their own. They identify a problem and they go and try to tackle it. But one, are you both seeing an increase in collaboration, such as what the Nudge Institute is trying to achieve? And two, do you see value in this collaboration and in institution building itself?
And the way I see this, much talked about collaboration, is that people have to have their own clear incentives and models clear. There has to be a purpose to collaboration. Collaboration for its own sake is neither necessary nor useful. But I think like in businesses, right, if I'm giving something, I'm expecting something in return, and that given exchange is what happens, right? Investors invest money and hope for a return. Entrepreneurs create value for themselves and for the people who are writing checks. Right. It's very similar here. As long as the pieces of the development sector are all being solved by different organizations with their unique strengths, the overall ecosystem can create a lot more impact. And the rules of collaboration will be set up by the entities based on their give and take. And we're starting to see that happen. For example, the history of Indian non-profit sector is we got independence through activism. So first 50 years, we saw a lot of non-profits wanting to create change through activism. Right. And that gave us huge value from right to information, right to work, right to education, etc. Absolutely needed. And we had charity. But along with that, we started seeing that it started to go away from do charity or do activism to saying we can do service delivery on the ground, provide education, provide healthcare, and that started scaling. We saw Pratham and many other organizations do amazing job in high quality service delivery. But when you want to scale at a national level, then you want to see an intermediary ecosystem taking solutions that can scale, not organizations necessarily that can scale. You can't do service delivery for 1.4 billion people on education despite how much wealth you have. And we are seeing that this ecosystem of service providers as intermediaries are coming in between grassroots work and governments and markets to say, okay, we can help entrepreneurs do this. We can do impact assessment better. We can go and find talent for the nonprofits. We can go and become fundraising consultants for NGOs. And that's creating a compounding capacity in the sector to both collaborate and scale their impact. And that's very unique in the last 4-5 years.
Okay. And now, when it comes to collaboration and ways to find solutions to particular problems, talking it through and discussing ideas is, of course, important. So now we're talking on the sidelines of Charcha. So, Mr. Kalra, could you tell us about the importance of these kind of platforms that bring together people with different ideas and they can hash out either problems or solutions?
Yeah, it's my first attending. It's first time I've attended Charcha, which is my bad. Should have been here before. But It's amazing to see the buzz. I think it's critical that we have this kind of thought leadership. There are really, I think, very well curated, I must say. Every panel is going through the whole agenda. I think it's been well thought through on different aspects. And the people who are selected to speak, also people who are actually attending. Like I have seldom seen, we were just speaking at a panel in Stein Auditorium, a more connected and interested audience. And despite, I'm talking about speaking at all kinds of conferences, it's quality over quantity, even the numbers were big. But everyone there was genuinely very interested and was taking away something, was adding to it. We saw the quality of questions coming at the end of the panel from the audience. And they were phenomenal too. So I think we need many more of these, because the reality is people are still learning about this space. So, everyone's well-intentioned, but they want to figure out how can I add value? And you suddenly realize you can. I met a company which is 200 software developers only working in the social sector. And much needed, because in the social sector today, you are going to have a web presence. You might even have an app. You need technology in many ways to, again, connect both sides of your own marketplace. It's not easy to afford the best of vendors. You may not have the tech talent. So where do you go? Here's someone who's happy to focus only on this. That's really fascinating. And I was amazed at the kind of companies I've even met on the sidelines saying we want to be part of this ecosystem. It's our way of giving back. We're running a for-profit organization, but we are working and we want to serve only this sector. And inclusivity is the common thread across. And it's not just for when we typically think inclusivity, we're thinking, gender, we're thinking physical disabilities. People are talking about really marginalized sectors of the population. And as Atul said, our denominator is so large that every niche is very large. So we have to solve for them too. We have to take everyone along as we move towards, Viksit Bharat. And we move towards that, we have to take everyone along. It can't happen if we leave behind, any parts of the society, which numbers are just too large. So I think we need Charcha in every big city. We need people to come in to share their experiences, and it'll have a tremendous effect. Like you will see after this, which I'm sure you've seen before, people didn't even know the kind of quality work not only is Nudge Institute doing, but a lot of the other partner organizations. And for you, I think that's what I loved about what you told me in the first meeting, that one nudge is not going to solve the problem. We need a whole ecosystem and we need everyone to get lifted together. And I think I can see that happening. So kudos to you. I remember our first meeting, very, very young and very new. And to see you grow from strength to strength is just amazing.
Thank you. I think philanthropist, you are creating this wave of support for the ecosystem, and that's
I think we're all in this together. So
awesome.
And in fact, about this wave, the Nudge has now crossed 100 supporters, which itself is a very strong number. But do you have your sight set on an even larger number now?
So we have 103 founding supporters right now. All of them come on board as a founding angel or a super angel or philanthropist or a patron. I think there are two things we want to do. One, obviously, we want to make sure that we are able to meaningfully engage the 100 plus supporters we already have. We can't come at saying, let's add more and more people, but we are not able to partner meaningfully to get the value that all of them can actually provide. Capital is one thing, but the amount of wisdom, experience, skills, their organizational sort of capabilities, there is so much more to be had from that ecosystem to actually create more impact. And I'm guilty of not leveraging as much of Deep and his ecosystem of businesses that he has, etc., which could meaningfully contribute here. So that is the first thing I want to focus on, saying, can we partner more and more and get people more involved beyond just capital, and obviously more capital as well. That's one part of it. But I think giving the size of the country and the size of wealth we are seeing, insane number of people are now increasingly getting more and more wealthy, and they genuinely come back and say, look, we never thought we'll make so much money and we don't know what to do beyond this.
Yep.
I think it is a disservice to them as well if they don't have opportunities to partner in the great work that's happening in organizations, not just Nudge, but all the other ones as well. So we need to figure out a way to also give them, how can they live their, sort of call it the giving life vicariously through us and others. So you will see this number grow. Hopefully we'll be seeing 250 founding supporters in a year from now, 1.5 years from now. And that's something we're working towards.
Fantastic. But on that note, thank you both so much for your time.
Thank you. And keep up the good work at Print. I really like what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Hello and welcome to ThePrint. This is Anisha Reddy, Senior Correspondent. And today we are here to talk about philanthropy, specifically collaborative philanthropic efforts and institution building. And who better to talk to about this than the two guests we have with us today. So we have with us Mr. Atul Satija, who is the founder and CEO of Nudge Foundation. The foundation is a philanthropic organization that brings together over 100 philanthropists and many other corporate players, and their major goal is alleviation of poverty. We also have Mr. Vidit Aatrey, who is the CEO and founder of Meesho. It's a very well-known and one of the most interesting shopping platforms that we have in today's time. Starting off with you, Mr. Atul, could you shed some light on how philanthropic undertakings, which we are seeing a rise in such initiatives, what kind of gaps do these initiatives actually bridge in today's society? If you could start off with that.
Sure. See, if you look at overall philanthropic funding that you see in India, but also in other markets, a very large percentage of that comes from corporates. And CSR by definition requires you to spend every single rupee they give you, which means that if somebody gives you 100, you have to spend 100 or more, you can't spend 99. Which means you cannot build an institution or an organization on that because there is no leftover money to focus on people, office, try out an idea, do an innovation, build some technology, etc. So the wealth that we are seeing increase in India from philanthropists is actually coming in with a degree of freedom that allows non-profits to build the organizations that can actually scale their impact, which is almost like foundational for the sector as well.
Right. So to begin with, Vidit, sir, I wanted to understand where the idea to use your capital towards social change actually came about, and how you went about deciding that you wanted to collaborate with the Nudge towards bringing some social change.
Yeah. So I think it was always the plan that at some point in time, Meenu and I, Meenu's my wife, would give back to the society in some way, right? Like both of us are entrepreneurs, we've been building companies, and I think we're just looking at a way of how we can give back. And I know Atul now for a very long time from our InMovie days, and like knowing the mission of Nudge, the kind of mission we have taken of making India poverty free by 2047, I think is a very, very powerful mission, something that like I connect with, I think all the other folks who are part of the founding team connect with. And I think that's the reason, right? Like I know the person who's leading this mission, the mission in itself, something that you connect so much with. So I think both of us were very clear that this is the place where we should go all in, and like I think that's how it started.
Right. So Atul, so there's a lot of emphasis within the philanthropic world about specific emphasis on institution building. Could you elaborate a little on what exactly is institution building and how that makes an impact in the society?
See, if you look at companies on one side and non-profits on the other side, you build companies where you understand an entrepreneur, you understand their product, you understand their business model, and say, here is the money, I trust you to figure it out. You do all the due diligence before and then trust them to build their organization. Non-profit sector has traditionally evolved where you say, okay, I want to feed 100 people in my backyard, I can give you money, but can you do it for me? So in a way, non-profits have been providing service to philanthropists to do things, given the history is very charity-led and not solution and problems-led. And I think we are seeing in the last 15, 20 years that non-profit entrepreneurs are thinking more like any other entrepreneurs to say, okay, which problem do I pick? How do I solve? How much money do I need? And who will bring it? And I think that kind of mindset is requiring different kind of capital, different degree of freedom that non-profits did not have historically. And I think it is also going to create very different kind of impact, hopefully at very large scale. So when we say institution building, we mean that you require the capital that requires you to build an organization that can survive, let us say, shocks, external shocks, internal shocks, and over a period of time actually start scaling their impact. Everything compounds over a period of time. So if institution is not strong, you cannot really create scale over time. And in the non-profit sector, you need that kind of capital to come in, call it more risk-taking capital, innovation, demanding capital, ideas, supported capital, which allows you to create impact at scale.
Okay, interesting. So, along with Meesho, there are several, there's a trend of increasing entrepreneurs who are wanting to take more philanthropic initiatives. Why do you think that is now? I mean, why do you think we're seeing that trend now? Could you shed some light on that?
Yeah, I think multiple things are coming together in my opinion. I think now, first is, I think very different kind of institutions are being built, like Nudge, with a very different kind of talent, very focus on the mission, leveraging technology and thinking about scale from day one. I think that's a very big change from what it was earlier. And second, I think a lot of the entrepreneurs that you see today are also entrepreneurs who come from like middle class families, like people who have seen, like I think they can empathize with some of these problems a lot more. Like I come from a lower middle class family, right? Like I saw people around me who were struggling for basic things, and I knew at some point in time I'm going to do something and help them out. So I think it's a mix of both, and there are a lot of other entrepreneurs who are exactly like this. So I feel like stronger connection with a mission like this because of the higher empathy levels, plus like the kind of institutions that are available that you can support and become a part of. I think both of them are leading to a very different kind of participation from these entrepreneurs to something like Nudge.
Mm-hmm. So like the collaboration that Nudge has with Meesho and several other philanthropists, what kind of advantages do these collaborative efforts have? I mean, it shows up in different ways, like you pool funds and you network. So it's like a new trend that's coming up where it's a collaborative effort. So how has that changed the philanthropic world?
See, in some ways, it is not very new. Many non-profits, even historically, have been built by many people pulling in money towards an idea. We have seen education institutions in India created by foreign money coming into India, startups putting that money, government supporting. We have seen the white revolution and dairy revolution happen through the same philanthropy capital and government capital together coming in. But I think the rise of the startup ecosystem in India is actually fueling it much, much more than we have seen in the past. And what it is doing is that it is actually doing two things. One, it is bringing pooled capital, which creates resilience inside the non-profit to survive bad weather, like I said. But it is also changing the level of aspiration inside, because entrepreneurs who are very successful, Vidit is a great example, they're also questioning, saying, why are you thinking at this scale? Can we not solve the problem at a level where it can very meaningfully affect millions of people? And I think the ambition of non-profit sector is also changing with that. Plus, when people bring money, that is one part of it, but they also bring their energy, commitment, smarts, ability to scale organizations. And that is also helping non-profits think differently. So it's a very nice, call it a commitment to a purpose and passion with the smarts and scale orientation and capital that is coming together, which is almost changing the fabric of the non-profit sector.
So these are obviously the advantages. A follow-up question would be, what are the challenges to bring people towards such collaborative efforts?
I think it's a learning journey for both sides. First-time philanthropists also have first-time philanthropy questions. And as people give on an ongoing basis, their thoughts evolve on what do they deeply care about, how much do they want to engage, how much they want to help beyond the money, how can their organization support beyond their personal capital. So these are journeys that individual entrepreneurs make. Non-profits also go through the same journey of saying, how do we engage philanthropists beyond the capital? How can we make them a part of the journey so they understand the problem, understand the solution, and probably will partner for a long term? And I think that's the learning journey that both sides are going through. I think overall, what it is also doing is that non-profits between each other are also starting to find their space, which wasn't the case earlier. So if I'm solving for problem X, I was just having a chat with Vidit and he was saying how he has built a very lean organization because almost everything is being done by so many other partners. And non-profit sector has been almost unfairly told that you're not collaborative. And the reality is when there is very little capital, you focus on your own food first before figuring out. But these questions are very healthy and it's also making the sector collaborate together and find their own space.
So we've seen Meesho becoming increasingly accessible for a large customer base. It's allowing opportunities for small scale businessmen and even promoting women centric initiatives in that sense. What kind of parallels do you see between Meesho's approaches and the nudge's approaches towards addressing such problems that are very deeply rooted within our society?
By the way, I see a lot of parallels. So if you just look at our mission at Meesho, it is to really democratize internet commerce for everyone. And everyone includes 1 billion consumers, 70 million small businesses, and like tens of millions of people who are part of the logistics ecosystem. And I think if you see some of the parallels between the mission of Nudge and mission of Meesho, I think few things stand out. First is the kind of population scale impact that you're gunning for, right? Like, hey, you are trying to impact like billion plus people, really go after the largest problems. And I think that is a big common parallel. Second thing is what like Atul was just referring to, is around leveraging technology to create leverage, right? So like you not doing everything yourself, I don't think you can really create population scale impact in your own lifetime if you try to do everything yourself.
Yeah.
It can only be done by building an ecosystem, by building a platform, by leveraging technology. And the third thing I would say is like how we are doing it with the kind of talent we are doing it. I think Nudge is also very unique about the kind of talent that's part of this mission. People who come from backgrounds understanding technology, people who have been part of organizations creating large impact and now coming here because they believe in this. So I think I see lots of parallels across the board, and that's what like makes me feel very excited about both Meesho and Nudge.
So my last question to you would be, firstly, congratulations on reaching 100 founding supporters. What would your message be to your current supporters and your future supporters?
So I think for our current supporters, they've been very generous and they have been very, I would say, engaged in the purpose, but not in a disruptive way in the organization, which is a very high trust relationship. And I think we want to continue that relationship for the long term, so we can focus on the organization and deliver the impact they have signed up for. But I think while we are happy that we have our first 100 founding supporters of the Nudge, it is still a very small community given both the problem that we are tackling as well as the needs of the organization in the next 5-10 years. So I think we want to invite all the people in the country who care about building a good society, not just building a good economy, to actually come forward and partner in our journey so we can together make, like we say, poverty-free India within a lifetime.
That sounds very exciting. All the best to both of you, and thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for watching this video.